Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I would recommend Angel Care to anybody. They have really helped me regain my strength.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
I couldn't have survived this without Angels Care.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, Jeff DeRoll. We're at Rary Call on the campus of Fort Hays State University, and the room number is 107. We are with the Assistant Professor of Painting Instruction at Fort Hays State University, Joel Dugan, as we talk a little about the work and activities of painting, part of the arts of Fort Hays State University. Joel, to begin with, is there a typical art student who comes to you?
I would like to say that I hope we never get a typical art student. No, and often I find that my classes are probably comprised of about a quarter of the student body is non-traditional, meaning that they essentially are taking the classes as their maybe elective credits outside of their major. So currently in my drawing class, I also teach drawing as well as painting. I have about 4 psychology majors. And a philosophy major, and then one person who essentially is doing physical therapy. And so I like to have those students in the class, and sometimes you find that they're the most fearless because there's not a lot of expectation for them. They see the class as a release. Mm-hmm. Maybe it becomes a class that is more dominant right-hand side of the brain rather than left. And so they're able to, in a way, they're just able to have a little bit of a kind of break from the factual demanding bookwork that they have outside or coursework they have outside of our class. So yeah, I don't know if there's a normal student.
We have a working class behind us here. What are we seeing here, Joel?
What you're seeing here is a classroom that is working on developing essentially sketches that are the result of collage work for their next paintings. And so this is an intermediate course. In this course, you have both 320 and 420 level students in it. So when we think about those numbers, a 200 level class is the first course. That's your introduction course. 300 becomes the second level, and then 400 would be your third level. So what I've had them do is I gave them sketchbooks last Thursday, exactly 1 week from today. And that sketchbook had 30 pages in it, and I told them to fill the sketchbook by the time they came in on Tuesday. We then took those sketches and they photocopied half of them, and now they're cutting and assembling an environment with those. So then what we will do is print those out, and they will actually paint on top of the copies. So it's a way of kind of using life experiences. Obviously, I wanted them to draw from their environment, so they weren't just drawing from photographs that were pulled off of the internet. And understanding how to take pretty complex things and translate them into a unique point of view or unique perspective.
You were talking to Jeff and me before we began about some of the basic beginning points that you use with the students and how that then translates to further expressions. Mention that, if you would.
Yeah, I would probably say I had a professor one time that talked to me in grad school, and when we were talking about introduction to painting, and he asked me what my syllabus looked like, he asked what my first painting project was, and I told him it was still life based, and essentially we had a table of fruit. And his discussion was, how often do you see youth wanting to sit at a table and stare at that arrangement of fruit? Like there are more engaging things in their life that they become attracted or they succumb to than just fruit. So the first assignment I actually give them is referred to as a bloom and cluster assignment. And we just talk about lifespan and the cyclical revolution of things in our world. And so we look at plants to start with, and we talk about the form of a seed, and that reflecting a cluster, right? And then the form of a bloom, and how they become polar opposites, but they become so reliant upon one another. One has absolutely limited to no color palette, and one is extremely colorful and attractive. And then we actually relate that to simple things like, in terms of physics, we're thinking about the Big Bang Theory or the black hole. One is expelling and one is, absorbing. And so we relate that to, the seed or the cluster is, in a way, it is expelling, right? Because it's trying to kind of start to move its little roots out and make a base for it. While the bloom is meant to attract bugs, so it is in a way tempting or absorbing. So we look at those different terms, but we then use it as a jumping off board to create metaphors. And so then they create these little paper collages, and then they work from the paper collages where they're lighting them. They're also manipulating them from piece to piece, so they create a series of 3 paintings, and then those 3 paintings have to exhibit a transition. So there has to be some type of actual growth or decay that takes place in the image. And then what we actually talk about is how the camera and how cinematography has changed how the point of view of the viewer can be manipulated. So we look at simple camera techniques that they can consider when selecting what sections of their still life to work from. So yeah, I really try to take them away from that bowl of fruit.
You're really trying to expand their thinking and their processing of incoming information, aren't you?
Correct, yes. It's really important to me that they are continuously observing the environment around them in any one class or any one situation or scenario they're in, and that they're allowing themselves to filter that experience through their work.
The paintings on the easel, which you talked about as well with us, indicating that you wanted them to use colors that were outside the normal colors that they would see or natural colors that they would see. Is that another way of expanding that thinking?
Correct, and that's another way of saying I'm going to subject myself to an environment, right? But I'm going to give myself restraints that can help to maybe enhance my ability to filter things through my eyes or through my particular hand. So at this point, as they come in, I am getting them to arrange simple still lifes. Now they bring in all the objects that go into the still life. So usually they might be somewhat desperate, in relationship to one another. We do try to get 3 different types of surfaces, so a reflective or a furry or a flat surface. But my main attempt with that project is I'm going to put limitations on you that are going to hopefully force you to not just duplicate as a printer. We have the camera, we have the printer, right? We know how to freeze time and how to create photorealistic or lifelike images. My interest with them with painting is I want you to develop a palette for how to translate things in an eye that is unique to yourself, to who you are. So in the beginning, in the first one, I make them use a palette knife. So they're painting their whole painting with a palette knife without having a brush. And that becomes somewhat frustrating for the fact that you can't control it, right? You don't know always where the paint is on the bottom, so you're just responding. And I think that becomes really, really important as they just let into the material and what the tools are going to do for you, and then they react to it as it's happening, rather than trying to predict it, which then I think creates a lot of fear, frustration, and this worry that I'm doing something wrong. You notice it more and more with the newest generation of students that we have, is that the first thing they want to do when it comes up to the possibility that they could fail is, can you give me a link to a YouTube video or something that shows me how to do it? And the problem maybe with the arts is it's not black or white, it's always gray. And I can't show you a video. I could show you through my hand, but that alone could be a disadvantage for you.
You want them to expand their
Awareness and their perspective, yes.
and then that will then translate to the viewer that sees that finished product.
Correct.
Talk a little about the Moss Thorns Gallery. I'd like to ask you to promote some of the exhibits that are coming up for the public to see, if you would.
Well, what we have left for the remainder of this semester is really a great grouping of work that showcases our undergraduate students. And so our next show that's coming up is going to be our graphic design show. And graphic design is our largest department here at Fort Hays State University. And Carrie and Chaiwat do a wonderful job with helping those students get to a point where they have quite a diverse collection of pieces. So they have print media, they have digital interactive media, and then they also have packaging that's a part of that show. That will open next Friday, and then it will run essentially for a month. And then after that will be the Student Honors Exhibition, which is an opportunity for students to submit work that gets juried by a guest juror from outside of the university. And then we actually have scholarships that are awarded to approximately 12. Last year we had a little bit more monies. We raised the money for the scholarships through an art sale that takes place in the fall. But it's just a way for us to give the students a cash award that helps them to supplement some of their material costs. And it gives them money going into the summer to use as research money, really, to continue to develop their research.
Joel, this is about your 4th year of painting instruction at Fort Hays State University. So tell us about your journey. We've got a couple of quick questions here in our last 4 minutes or so, but I want you to tell us about your journey in the art world.
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I was born in a small town of Indiana, Pennsylvania, but I actually grew up in South Florida. So I grew up in Hollywood, Florida, which was just between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And then I was there until I went to undergraduate at a design college in Detroit, Michigan. So for me, that was a wonderful experience to see the multiple facets of the art world. I got a nice scholarship going up there, which really allowed me, the opportunity to attend a private art college. And so I started in industrial design, made my way into illustration, and then came to painting. So I do tell undergrads, I changed my degree, or what would be my major degree, I guess, 3 times during my undergraduate years. And it was not necessarily that I found it to be too maybe hard for me to translate myself through those materials. There was just a freedom from my high school years that I yearned to get back. So then after I was in painting for the first semester, I got offered an opportunity to paint a mural. And I had been offered the opportunity with 3 other students.
Not just a mural, but a mural in the state capital of Lansing, Michigan.
Yes. Now the mural is 80 feet long by about 6 feet tall, so it was quite a feat. Those other students ran into a conflict and they had to back out of the project, so I was left with it on my own. And I was a stubborn child, and I'm still a stubborn human being, and so I was going to find a way to complete it. So I completed the project. It's still, you will see it on public television there because it's in one of their secondary rooms that they use for broadcasting. In their Mackinac room is what it's called. And so after I completed that, then I pretty much had a constant inquiry about murals. And so I started my own company and painted murals for 6 years. And I returned back to Florida because they had some public art opportunities, and I worked for the local community board that basically established the Arts for Percentage program. So I started to develop an Arts for Percentage program that allowed funding for the arts in that region. And then after that, I moved to Chicago for a little while, taught courses, and worked as a professional artist as well as still doing the murals, and then went to grad school in Indiana at Indiana University. And then during my very last year, I applied to and got hired here. So I came to Fort Hays right out of grad school.
early influences in your career?
I would say my earliest influences in my career was probably, like most youth, I really appreciated the work and the scope of work of Dali. And then I found myself really, really interested in Diego Rivera. I saw the Diego Rivera mural while I was in Detroit, a beautiful mural that showcases the industrial world, or the rise of industrialization specific to the car companies, the automotive companies, and I was just amazed. I've always been amazed by work that touches on everyday class of society. So the regionalists, really interested in Thomas Hart Benton and Grant Wood, and I find that I'm always perplexed to see people that have, in a way, painted working class. So my personal work really relates to everyday people.
It's amazing that you mentioned Salvador Dali, because our producer Jeff Durall was just talking about the crazy clocks in the Dali presentations and his paintings, and how that stands out to Jeff.
Yeah, as a symbol, I think that becomes one of maybe the idea that we're going to take time and turn it into a record of time and turn it into taffy. That becomes a really interesting and maybe compelling moment. But I will say, when I saw the work early on, maybe my first impression was, how does somebody get such distinct interpretations of the world around them? You know, there seems to be a real kind of imaginative, in a way, it's almost a exaggeration that takes place. But when I went to the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida, as a kind of school trip, and I saw the 5 extremely large paintings he painted in the last part of his life, I was just amazed. I was in awe. So he created 5 paintings there that are about 20 feet tall and that are about 10 feet wide, and there are markers on the ground. And when you stand on those markers and you view those paintings, you see different optical illusions from different points of view. So the idea that he was both a mathematician and an artist, and in a way that he was distorting things that now we take for granted for our phone applications or our, programs like Photoshop, I was really interested in what he was doing with one's optics. So nowadays when I ask students, I probably say I still get a third of them. Salvador Dali's on that list. Next to it's probably Vincent van Gogh. Those are the 2, kind of big icons for them.
We have to mention, Joel, the billboard, which Leland Powers, the chair of the Department of Art, referenced, the billboard that's on Interstate 70, which you saw a picture of that Jeff put into our interview with Leland Powers. Your work behind the young lady, and the young lady, an art student at Fort Hays State.
Correct, Julia Canton. Julia is actually in this class. She is currently a sophomore. At this point, she was a junior. And actually, Julia, I had hired her this summer as an intern for me. And she helped me get together some paintings for a show that took place in Manhattan at the Strecker Nelson. And so now that work is going down to Barton Community College at the Schaefer Gallery. And I'll be hanging it next Monday, and it will open next Friday. And that's going to showcase kind of my work from 2008 to the current. And so it's even before grad school, and so it's a nice body or grouping.
Folks could stop in that area and see it in Barton County.
Yeah, in Barton County at Schaefer Gallery.
Schaefer Gallery. Finally, I have to ask this question in our remaining minute or so. Why is art important in our life, Joel?
I think art is one of the few things that helps to capture maybe the evidence of the impact of our time that we're all a part of. And so art becomes, in many ways, the marker or the marquee of what I'd like to call, or I call, the human condition. And so it's this idea that it can serve as a great opportunity to collect a caption for what is a shared social awareness. So, and the other thing too is that it is a constant dialogue that is always evolving, and in a way it's always developing. So For me, art helps to create an image that can translate beyond any social barrier or any language barrier. You know, it's kind of a general awareness, I guess, or a common awareness. So for me, it's really important that art is about an internal interpretation. My wife's a graphic designer, and so I see multiple facets of the field at all times. And I think that's something that's really great about our department, is that we work back and forth with students who really cross the boundaries of any one of our majors. And so I think that kind of collaborative spirit is really unique.
Our guest has been Assistant Professor in Painting Instruction at Fort Hays State University, Joel Dugan, our Community Connection. Thanks for watching.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hays and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
There's not any words to describe their kindness.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
They saved my life.